Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Kearney Math Show. On today's episode, we are going to be featuring mini lesson 2, in which we are going to be finding the missing angle with equations. So yesterday, you all talked about some special types of angles, and you might need a little help remembering yesterday. So if you are trying to think back of what did we do in our last mini lesson, this might jog your memory. The name of the angles are right acute, obtuse. Or a straight angle is 180 degrees. Now everybody sing with me. Right acute, obtuse. The name of the angles are. All right, so that just might remind you of what we were working on in our last mini lesson. But we took it a little bit further. We talked about more than just right acute, obtuse. We talked about when two angles are added together to make a right angle, or when two angles are added together to make 180. And we talked about those 4 words that you see at the top of your paper: complementary, supplementary, vertical, and adjacent. And hopefully at this point you've already done this, but if you haven't, if you need to, pause the video and write in a quick definition and a picture for each of those just to jog your memory, because that's going to help you with today's lesson. So before we get started, take just a minute and I want you to read your learning goal and go ahead and write entry number 2 at the top of your mini lesson. So this is entry number 2. And go ahead and read your learning goal. Okay, so by the end of today, you guys should be able to explain how to use special angles to solve for missing angle measures. And luckily, guys, you kind of already did this on your homework on our last mini lesson. So this should be super simple. We're just going to take it to the next level a little bit. So let's just quickly remind, because this Kearney's old and sometimes I forget. The first thing, let's talk about what are supplementary angles. So we talked about this just a few days ago. Supplementary angles are 2 angles that add up to 180 degrees. Okay, and if you remember, when we talk about 180 degrees, that's a straight line. So that means 2 angles that have created a straight line. For example, this picture here is a perfect example. We've got a straight line, and then we cut it in 2, and we've got angle A and B. That means if we add together angle A plus angle B, I should get 180 degrees. Okay? So if you look at that first example here, this is kind of what you already did on your homework. Okay, you know that these 2 angles add up to a straight line, which is 180. So you can use that to find that missing value. So I'm going to let you come back and do that one on your own. I'm going to kind of go over some of the ones you haven't seen before. So I'm going to skip down to number 2. And please note, any problems that I skip, my expectation is after the video is over, you need to go back and do all of the practice that I've skipped, okay? So the next section says, find the supplement, okay? So when we see that word supplement, that's exactly what we talked about up here, supplementary. That means, what can I add to 40? What other angle, because supplementary is 2 angles add to 180, what can I add to 40 to give me 180? So I might work backwards, and I can say 180 minus 40, and that would give me 140. So for all of those problems on number 2, you're going in and you're saying, what can I add to that angle that's given that would then create a supplementary angle, which is 180. So I want you to come back, and I want you to finish those practice, okay? So I'm just kind of skipping around here just to make sure that we have time to get to the more difficult problems. So I really want to talk about looking at number 4 and 5. These are the types of problems Miss Kearney loves. And this is what the big chunk of what we're going to be doing today. So we are going to take, basically, guys, we're not learning anything new, okay? We're going to take what we already learned several months ago about how to solve an equation, and we're going to combine it with what we learned about supplementary angles, and we're going to put those 2 together. It's not anything new. It's just putting 2 things together you already know how to do with this problem. So if you look at number 4, it says find the value of an x. So we're trying to figure out, what does x equal? Well, looking at the problem, what do you notice that you have? That's right, you have a straight line that has been broken up into two angles. Okay, we've got two angles, so we've got x, we don't know what x is, and we know that the other angle is 2x minus 30. So we don't really know what angles measure, but we know a little bit about them. But since they're on a straight line, what do we know that those two angles need to add up to? That's right, 180 degrees. Anytime you have a straight line, they're going to add up to 180. So for me, I'm going to set up an equation because that's the easiest way Ms. Crane knows how to solve these. So I know that the two angles need to add to 180, so I'm going to say the first angle is x. Take that. And then I take my second angle, which we said was 2x minus 30. And we said it's two angles that add to 180. So I'm going to add those two angles. So x plus 2x minus 30, and they should add up to equal 180. And now what do you see that you have? So you just have an equation, so we just need to go in and solve it. So I'm going to draw my line. Do you see anything that you can simplify? Yeah, you can add x plus 2x and you get 3x. Minus, bring down that minus 30, bring down your equals 180. And now you have a basic two-step equation. What do you want to get rid of first when solving this? I want to get rid of that constant. So I'm going to get rid of that minus 30. And to get rid of minus 30, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to add 30. And remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to add 30 to the other side. So I get 3x equals 180 plus 30. It's going to give me 210. And I still haven't solved for x, so I got to keep going until I get x by itself. Right now, what's happening with the 3 and the x? They're being multiplied, so I'm going to divide. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. 210 divided by 3 is 70. And then you always want to go back and say, does it make sense? Does it make sense that that x is 70? And yeah, it kind of does. It looks like it could be 70 degrees. So for that one, x equals 70 degrees. Okay? So what I did was I just looked at those two angles, and I saw that those two angles are on a straight line. And so I added them up to get 180, okay? So I'm going to do the next one with you just in case you maybe missed it, okay? So the next one, we have two angles. Number 5, we're still trying to solve for x. And if you notice, those two angles are in a straight line, okay? And what do I know a straight line is? 180. So that means I've got to take those two angles and figure out what x could be that those two angles would equal 180. So I'm going to take both of them. I have x, I'm going to do x plus, and then my other angle is 4x plus 15, and I know that they should add up to 180, okay? So now, I just need to solve for x, okay? And from there, just like we did earlier, we're going to combine like terms, so x plus 4x is 5x plus 15 equals 180. And I'm going to stop there because I think you guys can take it. Okay, so you're going to keep solving that two-step equation. We want to get rid of the constant and keep going until you have x by itself. If you want to pause the video after you solve it and go check the answer key, feel free to do that. Okay, so I'm going to move over to the right side. So that was that was supplementary. Let's talk about complementary. Remind me what complementary, when I hear complementary, I hear compliment. And to compliment someone is to say something nice, which is the right thing to do. So compliment reminds me that it's the right thing to do, which right reminds me of 90 degrees. Okay? So complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Okay? So we can use that to solve the following equations. So basically, 1 and 2, you guys can do on your own. Right? You don't need me for this. And you really don't even need me for number 3. When you find the complement of 30, that means what can I add to 30 to make it a complementary, which equals 90. So what can I add to 30 to give me 90? So that would be 60. Okay? So you can come back later and do 1, 2, and 3. I want to skip down to number 4. Okay? So number 4 is similar to what we just did a minute ago. We're solving for an unknown x. Okay, so I want you to just look at this picture and see, what do you notice? Okay, look at number 4. Okay, I noticed that the whole thing is a straight angle. And what do we know a straight angle is? 180. Okay. I'll also notice that there's a straight line through the middle, which means we cut that 180 in half. And that means that one side, this is 90, which means that this other side here must also be 90. Okay? So could I use that information to help me solve for x? Definitely. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an equation. And there are a couple of different ways that you could set this up. Okay, so this is just one way. So what I see is I see that these two angles here add to give me 90. So I'm going to set x plus 3x plus 20, because those are my two angles, equal to 90. I've taken my two angles and I'm adding them and setting them equal to 90. And just like we did before, we're going to draw our line and solve. Okay, so combine like terms, x plus 2x is 4x plus 20 equals 90. We want to get rid of that constant, so we're going to do the opposite of adding 20, so we're going to subtract 20. Bring down my 4x equals 90 minus 20 is 70. And now what's happening to 4 and x? They're being multiplied, so the opposite is to divide by 4. So 70 divided by 4 is 17.5. So then go back and ask yourself, does that make sense? Does that look like it's 17.5 degrees? And yeah, it kind of does. Okay, so just to recap, what we've done is we've taken what we know about complementary and supplementary, and we've taken what we know about equations, and we've put them together. Okay, so when you're working through these problems, what I want to see is you look at the picture and decide, what do I want to know? And how can I set up an equation to help me solve for what I don't know? Okay, so look and see, do you see a straight line that would make it supplementary? Do you see a right angle that would make it complementary? Okay, so ask yourself those questions as you go back and work on the practice. Okay, so right now you're getting ready to end the video. What I want you to do is go back and complete all of the practice on the front that we didn't do together in the video. Okay, and take your time, do a few, go check the answer key, make sure you're getting them right, and then go back and try some more. Okay, so good luck. If at any time you have a question, go back and rewatch the video. All right, good luck, guys. Make me proud. Peace out, Rainbow Trout. Love you, mean it.